Welcome to the Shift Show with M&M, where we explore how to pivot with purpose when life throws you a curveball. I'm your host, Megan Stockman. If you've recently been laid off, especially as part of the 2025 federal terminations, your world might feel a bit upside down. And one of the most urgent questions is, how do I handle my finances right now? That's exactly what we're unpacking today with Mary Jo Caesar, a holistic financial wellness strategist, retired chief operating officer, and founder of Merging Life and Money. With over 30 years of experience across pensions, investments, banking, and life insurance, Mary Jo now empowers professional women and transitioning employees to take control of their finances, starting from the inside out. She specializes in helping individuals rebuild after life-altering changes like layoffs, blending mindset coaching with practical financial strategies to create lasting transformation. Through her coaching, digital resources, and weekly podcast, The Merging Life and Money Show, Mary Jo guides others in moving from financial survival to sustainable success. In this episode, we're going to break down the conversation into 3 key phases. 1, stabilize before you strategize. What to do in the first 72 hours after a layoff. Number 2, cash flow CPR, how to build a survival budget and manage your money while in transition. And number 3, prepare for what's next, what it takes to rebuild your financial life with intention. If you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure where to begin, this episode is your financial first aid kit. Let's dive in. Welcome, Mary Jo. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Megan. And thank you for that great introduction. And as you said, we are here to assist.
Yeah. So let's dive in.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing we want to talk about is the first 72 hours. What, in your opinion, is the very first thing someone should focus their energy on in the first crucial 24 to 72 hours?
That's a great question. The absolute first priority should be giving yourself permission to feel and process the news. Emotional regulation is essential before any financial decision can be made. Many people immediately jump into action mode from a place of panic, which can lead to poor decisions. So take those first 24 hours to acknowledge the emotional impact, whether that's shock, fear, anger, or even relief. Once you've done that initial processing, focus on gathering information about your separation package. Review your termination letter. Check for severance, accrued PTO, that is paid time off. PTO can cover vacation days, sick leave, personal days, and holidays in some employment contracts. So make sure to check because you may be entitled to receive payment for unused accrued PTO, depending on your employer's policy and state labor laws. And get clarity on your final paycheck timeline. This gives you immediate insight into what funds you will have in the short term. Make sure you understand your benefits timeline and document everything from your exit interview if you had one. Knowledge is power, remember that in these moments. And having clarity on exactly what resources you are working with creates a foundation for all decisions that follow. Please do not make any major financial moves in that first 72-hour window. This is information gathering time, not decision making time.
That is such a smart way to begin. So how do you avoid panic and maintain clarity right after getting the news?
Well, we are human, right?
Yeah.
When you don't expect that stuff, man, I cannot even imagine how the very first wave of laid off employees reacted because, yeah, they talked about it, but that's one thing to talk about it and one thing to see it happen. Remember, panic leads to poor decisions. So maintaining clarity starts with controlling your information environment. I encourage a short digital detox. Turn off media notifications, avoid scrolling through job boards obsessively, and create designated times to check your email regarding your separation. The bombardment of information can be overwhelming. I also encourage grounding practices like journaling or meditation to reconnect with your center. Therefore, I recommend what I call the two notebook method. So keep one notebook for capturing all your emotional responses, your fears, your anxieties, and a separate one for factual information and action items. This separation helps you honor your feelings while preventing them from clouding your judgment on practical matters. Also, identify your support team immediately. Who are the two or three people who can provide emotional support without feeding into catastrophic thinking? Be selective about who you share your news with in those first days, as other people's anxieties can amplify your own. Remember, clarity breeds confidence.
I love that. So, when is the right time to seek financial guidance and who should they reach out to first?
Well, financial guidance should be thought within the first week, but not necessarily the first 72 hours. All right. So those initial days should be about collecting all the relevant information about your separation package and benefits. By day 5, you will want to reach out to a financial professional who understands federal benefits. If you're a government worker or someone familiar with your industry's typical severance structures. Your first point of contact should actually be your employee assistance program if your agency offers one, as many provide free financial counseling sessions that can serve as a starting point. So if you have access to that EAP, go along and use them. Next, I recommend speaking with an employment benefit counselor to understand the exact timeline and requirements, as this is often your most immediate income replacement source. Only after these steps should you consider fee-based financial advisors or coaches like me who can help with longer-term strategy. Remember, layoffs are emotionally charged. Having a neutral party helps you assess your situation without spiraling into fear. So that's what I would advise.
It's really important to remember that even the place that you were employed does have resources available to you past your employment. I think it's easy to get separated and start looking around for answers elsewhere. So I think that is a really great thing to remind people of. So, what paperwork should someone prioritize in the first few days? What are they looking to gather?
Okay, so the short answer is prioritize getting copies of your termination letter, health insurance document, your most recent pay stubs, your logging details for your benefits portals like your 401k plan statements, and any life insurance tied to employment. Now, the detailed answer is prioritize documentation in these categories in this order. First, your separation agreement and any non-disclosure or non-compete documents. Second, benefit continuation paperwork, especially health insurance, as you typically have a limited window to elect COBRA or alternative coverage. Third, unemployment filing documentation. Even if you are receiving severance, you will want to establish your claim early. Fourth, retirement and TSP, right? Your saving plan and a 401k plan if you're in the private. You need that documentation, though I strongly advise against making any changes to these accounts in the first 30 days. Create a digital and physical folder for all these documents. Take photos of everything with your phone as backup and start a running document noting key dates and deadline from all this paperwork. So be strategic about it.
Right. So, how can someone ensure that they don't overlook any important resources?
Well, missing available resources is one of the biggest mistakes I see, to tell you the truth. Okay. So create a systematic approach by mapping resources in 4 categories: employer provided, government, professional associations, and community based. From your employer, look beyond the obvious severance to outplacement services, extended benefits, or alumni networks. Okay, so do some digging in here. Government resources include unemployment benefits, healthcare marketplace subsidies, and potentially workforce development program. Professional association often offer emergency grants, job boards, or reduced membership fees for those between positions. And community resource might include food assistance programs that can temporarily reduce your grocery budget or utility assistance programs. So schedule a meeting with your HR representative specifically to ask, what resources am I eligible for that haven't been mentioned yet? Often there are programs that aren't prominently advertised. And don't forget to check your previous benefit enrollment documents. Many people have income protection insurance they have been paying for, but forget about it during layoff. So the long and short answers for this question is create a checklist. Many states have unemployment benefits, food programs, and utility relief services you may not even know exist. Okay, so put your pride in your back pocket and do that. Also, reach out to your former HR department for guidance, as many offer transitional support and access to career services. This would be my answer to that question.
Great information. Okay, so moving on to cash flow CPR. This is the part that people worry the most about. Creating a survival budget. So, what does a survival budget look like, and how is it different from a regular budget?
A survival budget trims everything down to the essential, like housing, food, utility, and minimum debt payments, right? It is fundamentally different from your regular budget because it builds on the principle of time buying rather than lifestyle maintenance. So its primary purpose is to extend your financial runway by calculating exactly how long your current resources will last and making adjustment to stretch that timeline. The structure follows what I call the 30-60-90 framework. You create 3 increasingly simple versions of your budget. What you can eliminate within 30 days, typically subscription, dining out, entertainment. What you can reduce within 60 days, potentially downsizes vehicles, refinancing debt, or temporarily relocating. And what drastic measure you could take at 90 days if necessary, like tapping specific emergency funds or significantly changing housing. Unlike a regular budget focused on building wealth or lifestyle goals, a survival budget is ruthlessly prioritized around essential needs and contractual obligations. It should still include a small allowance for mental health maintenance, maybe a $20, $50 monthly for something that preserves your sense of normalcy, because complete austerity often backfires. At the end of the day, it's not forever, but it helps stretch your resources while you are in transition. No extra no subscriptions, and every dollar is assigned a job. Remember that.
Yeah. So, how can someone cut those expenses strategically without falling into a scarcity mindset?
That's a very, very good question. It doesn't take much to fall into this, trust me. Strategic expense cutting is about precision rather than deprivation. So
Mhm.
start by conducting what I call a value audit of every expense. Rate each on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10 for both financial impact and emotional kind of quality life impact, right? So target the first items with high financial impact but low emotional impact. Now, to avoid scarcity mindset, implement the pause, don't cancel approach for services you value but cannot currently afford. Many subscription services now offer pause options, and explicitly framing these cuts as temporary helps maintain a growth mindset. Also, look for substitution rather than elimination. If your $100 gym membership brings significant well being, don't just cut it off. Find a $20 alternative community or free community resource that serves the same fundamental need. The psychological framework matters tremendously here. So frame these changes as strategic adaptations rather than losses or punishments. In fact, I have a client create a temporary measures agreement with themselves and their families with specific metrics for when certain expenses will return, which transform the experience from deprivation to purposeful action. All you are doing is making space for financial recovery, not punishment.
I love that. And I love the contract with the family. What a beautiful way to bring everybody together in a
Oh,
time
yeah.
that can feel very scary.
And people tend not to want to do this, particularly if they are the main breadwinner. You have to be vulnerable. You got to let it out. You got to let people know where you stand. And once you do that, you'll feel a lot better emotionally.
Yeah.
And when you are okay emotionally, the rest will follow.
Yeah. So important. Okay. So, what short term income strategies can someone use to bridge the gap after a layoff?
In the federal sector, particularly, many workers have specialized skills that translate well to short term consulting or contract work, right?
Mhm.
Remember that. The first strategy is to approach your former employer or associated agencies about contract opportunities. Often they are eliminating positions, but still have budget for project based work, right? So beyond that, look at creating income streams in three categories: skill based, asset based, and benefit based. Skill based income include freelancing, consulting, or taking positions in your field, right? Asset based income involves leveraging what you already own, like renting a room or space or tutoring online, selling unused items strategically. Focus on items with high value but low utility. We all have them. Or renting equipment you own. Now, benefit based income includes unemployment benefits, activating credit card insurance or income protection policies because we have them and we just don't use them, and negotiating partial payments from pending tax refunds. So the key is to view these as portfolio elements rather than seeking a single replacement for your previous income. Most people are more successful stacking multiple smaller income sources during transition periods, which also creates valuable diversification for future financial resilience. I will end by saying this should be viewed as a stopgap income while you recalibrate.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons that I survived this transition, since we all know from the last episode that I went through this myself, is that I had some of these small incomes that I already had in place. And so it's something that they can use in the future as well, as, kind of a feeling of safety to take with them, even when they find their next career or their business that they start. Um,
Going at the other days when you got your job and you worked there all your life and retire, right? So those days are gone. So it's important for everybody to have some kind of a side hustle to keep them going.
Yes. Okay. So when, if ever, is it smart to touch their savings or retirement, and what should they avoid?
Oh my God, I was waiting for that question. This requires a very, very, very strategic approach. Your savings and retirement accounts should be mentally categorized into tiers, each with specific conditions for access. Tier one is your emergency fund. This is literally what it is designed for, but should be used systematically. Establish a monthly withdrawal rate rather than taking money reactively. Tier two would be general savings beyond your emergency fund, which can be accessed after your emergency fund if necessary. Retirement accounts should be considered last, but with important nuances. If you're under 59 and a half, avoid traditional 401k or IRA withdrawals due to penalties. However, Roth IRA contributions, not earnings, can be withdrawn penalty free, making them a better option in dire circumstances. Some federal employees with TSP accounts might qualify for hardship withdrawals with fewer penalties. Absolutely avoid taking 401k loans, which typically become due immediately upon separation. Avoid cash advances on credit card. Avoid payday, high interest loans. Stay away from that. Don't even consider that. Also, avoid liquidating investments in tax inefficient ways. If you have investment, be careful. Please consult a tax professional before selling investments to minimize tax impacts during an already challenging financial time. So I would leave you with that regarding that question.
Definitely. Okay. So are there tools, apps, or methods that you recommend for keeping a close eye on cash flow?
You know, there are plenty. Just know how to use them, right?
Yeah.
During financial transition, visibility becomes critical, but I recommend a slightly different approach to your normal financial management. Rather than comprehensive budgeting apps, focus on simplified daily cash awareness tools. I recommend the envelope method, either physical or digital, for expense tracking during this period. Okay. We have some apps like Good Budget or You Need a Budget work well for this as they focus on allocations rather than just tracking. Now, for federal employees specifically, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's financial planning tools are particularly helpful as they are designed with federal benefits in mind. And beyond the apps, establish a weekly financial review ritual, preferably the same day each week, to update your runway calculations. Create a simple spreadsheet that shows exactly how many weeks of expenses you can cover with current resources. This single metric is more motivating and actionable than trying to track dozens of budget categories. For those who find daily expense tracking stressful, I recommend the planned spending day approach. Designate 1 or 2 days per week for discretionary spending, which naturally limits outlays without requiring consistent vigilance. So prepare for what's next.
Such good advice. Thank you so much. Okay. So preparing for what's next. How do we rebuild with intention? So how do you shift from survival mode to rebuilding mode financially and emotionally?
Well, that is such an important question.
Mm.
Okay. The transition is delicate and should be intentional. I recommend using what I call stability markers to recognize when you are ready to shift focus. This typically include having secured reliable income covering essential expenses, having rebuilt at least 1 month of emergency savings, and most importantly, noticing that your decision making is becoming more proactive than reactive. So, emotionally, the shift often requires deliberate closure on the survival phase. I have clients perform a financial recovery review where they document what worked, what didn't work, and what they learned during the acute phase of their transition. This creates what I call psychological completion and extracts valuable lessons. Rebuilding mode is characterized by extending your planning horizon. In survival mode, you might think 30 to 60 days ahead. In rebuilding mode, you start making 6 to 18 months plans again. Start with rebuilding your emergency fund before accelerating debt payoff or resuming aggressive retirement savings. The psychological security of liquid savings is important for avoiding future scarcity responses.
Right. So, what does it mean to future proof your finances?
Future proofing your finances means diversifying your income, keeping a healthy emergency fund, having the right insurance in place, and continuously educating yourself. Be a life learner. The goal is to be resilient, not just in finance, but in how you adapt to life's curveballs. It's a three-part framework focused on resilience, diversification, and continuous skill development. Financial resilience includes establishing multiple layers of safety nets, not just an emergency fund, but also appropriate insurance coverage lines. You also have to think about credit. So establish lines of credit, maintain them, but don't use them.
Mhm.
And the last one is relationships with financial institutions. Establish them before you need them, always. Diversification, on the other hand, applies not just to investment, but to income, well, right? Even with a stable federal position or corporate job, developing a secondary income source, as I mentioned earlier, in a different sector provides insurance against industry specific downturns, right? The skill development component is often overlooked but critical. Continuously investing in transferable skills ensures your earning capacity remains robust regardless of specific employment situations. Federal workers especially should identify which of their specialized skills translate to private sector opportunities. A truly future-proof financial life includes regular planning, at least annually, work through how you would handle job loss, major health events, or significant market downturns, and ensure your systems can adapt to each scenario.
That sounds very comforting, honestly. So, I think that's such a great piece of advice for the future so that if anything like this happens again for any reason,
Yeah, and it
there's
will happen.
yeah, exactly. And transitioning from the military as well is very similar. Knowing that you have skill sets that don't carry the same title is really important. So it's very
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that. In November of last year, I did a show on the Merging Life and Money show about military women, how to handle the transition. Yeah,
awesome. I'll have to go check that one out.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what role does mindset play in the post layoff recovery?
Wow. Mindset is everything.
Mm.
Your beliefs about money, success, and self worth influence every decision, whether you like it or not. The research is clear that those who view job loss as a transition rather than a terminal event recover more quickly, both financially and emotionally.
Mhm.
I work with people to develop what I call identity resilience, ensuring their sense of self and value is not exclusively tied to a specific job title or to a specific employer. This is particularly important for long term federal employees whose professional identity may be strongly intertwined and connected to their agency or to their role. Practically, mindset work involves challenging catastrophic thinking patterns through evidence based exercises. For example, having clients create a resilience resume that focuses not on positions held, but on challenges that they overcame throughout their work history. This creates a narrative of adaptability rather than disruption. So, financial decisions are rarely purely logical, they are heavily influenced by our emotional state and beliefs. Money, as I said, is 80% emotional and 20% knowledge. A scarcity mindset leads to either paralysis or impulsive decisions, while a growth mindset facilitates strategic thinking and appropriate risk taking that can actually accelerate your recovery.
Right. So, what's a healthy way to revisit financial goals and make new ones after a major setback?
Goal reconstruction after setbacks requires a methodical approach. I recommend a three-phase process that honors the transition you've experienced.
Hmm.
First, conduct an honest goal inventory. Revisit previous financial goals and categorize them as still relevant, needing modification, or no longer align with your values or situation. This acknowledges that major life transitions often shift our priorities in meaningful ways. Second, before creating new numeric targets, revisit your financial values. I have clients complete a detailed financial value assessment that identify what money objectives actually matter most to them. Is it security, freedom, impact, status, or the core motivations? You got to know that, right?
Mhm.
Often, a layoff clarifies these values in ways that leads to more authentic goal setting, believe it or not.
Mm.
And finally, establish new goals with appropriate horizons. Some short-term wins, 3 to 6 months, to rebuild momentum, right? Medium-term objectives, 1 to 2 years, to establish directions, and longer-term visions that might actually be more inspiring than your pre-layoff goals, right? So a healthy approach also incorporates frequent review period. I would say review your goals more frequently than traditional financial planning. Okay, because you got some experience of being on top of the mountain and going down really fast, right? And on your way back up. So you want to use that experience. I recommend quarterly reviews for the first 2 years after a major setback, allowing for more what I would call adaptive planning as your situation evolves.
I love that you incorporate in the healthy reestablishment, understanding that this kind of event can shift where you want to go. You start to realize there's new adventures out there for you. There's new possibilities. When something like this kind of kicks you off of your path, you start to recognize that there might have been another path that was good for you in the first place. So I love that you incorporate that and recognize that you have to visit it more often as you're learning some of those lessons.
As they say, well, one door closes, a huge gate opens up.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so keep your ears to the ground and do what you got to do because that gate is waiting for you.
Right. I love it. Okay. So, what final words of encouragement would you give someone in this season?
What pops out of my mind is you are not your layoff. This is just one chapter. What you are experiencing is not just a financial challenge, it's a profound life transition that is testing your resilience in multiple dimensions.
Mhm.
Remember that your career trajectory is not linear, and some of the most successful professionals I've worked with point to periods of disruption as a catalyst for their greatest growth. I can tell you, been there, done that. Okay. The
Yeah.
skills you are building right now, like adaptability, resourcefulness, and careful prioritizations, are invaluable not just for weathering the storm, but for building a more resilient future. You are not just recovering, you are developing financial muscles that many never have the opportunity to build. Okay. I've worked with many professionals through similar transitions. And I've seen repeatedly that those who approach this time with intentionality often end up in position they find more fulfilling and better aligned with their values and where they were before. This is not just positive thinking here,
Mhm.
okay? It's a pattern I've observed consistently. And finally, remember that your financial situation is a critical part of your life, but it doesn't define your worth or limit your capacity for joy and connection, right?
Mhm.
Protect time for relationships and activities that nourish you throughout this process. The most successful transitions are not just about financial recovery, they are about emerging with a clearer sense of purpose and more authentic relationship with both your work and your resources. This is not just about a period to get through, it is a vessel that can transform your relationship with work, money, and even your own capabilities in profound, positive ways. So I will end by saying that with the right tools, the right support, and mindset, you can turn this detour into a greatest comeback. Trust the process and trust yourself.
I love it. This has been such a grounding and empowering conversation. Thank you so much, Mary Jo Caesar, for your wisdom and sharing your heart today. Before we wrap, can you let
Uh-huh.
our listeners know where they can find you, and what resources of support you have available for anyone who wants to go deeper?
Absolutely. And thanks for asking. If you are navigating a layoff or simply want to take a more empowered approach to your finances, I invite you to connect with me at www.marijocaesar.com. And let me spell it. So it's
Mhm.
w.ariejocaesar. That's where you will find a growing library of tools, guides, blogs, and supportive content built around holistic financial wellness. Okay. For those specifically impacted by a layoff, I have created a free downloadable resource called the Financial First Aid Kit: 10 Critical Moves to Make After a Layoff. It is designed to walk you through the immediate steps, emotionally and financially, as we discussed, to stabilize, reassess, and start building forward with clarity. So you can grab that on my website or through the link in the show description. And if you want to go even deeper, I offer one on one consultations as well as an online guided 30-day financial mindset reset challenge, which focuses on transforming your money mindset and rebuilding practical habits. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, where I share regular insights, encouragement, and strategies. And of course, tune in to my podcast, The Merging Life and Money Show, where I dive into everything from money and mindset to legacy and reinvention. So, whether you are in a place of uncertainty or ready to make bold financial changes, I want you to know that you do not have to go through this alone. Okay, there is support and there is a way forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to quickly recap the episode, we covered what to do immediately after a layoff to regain clarity and gather essential documents and support. We explored how to manage your cash flow with a survival budget and stay in control without falling into fear. And we looked ahead at how to rebuild your financial life with intention, blending strategy, mindset, and future-focused planning. If this episode helped you feel a little more empowered, please share it with someone else who might need a boost right now. And don't forget to follow The Shift Show with M&M for more support, stories, and tools to help you navigate what's next. Until next time, stay rooted, stay resourceful, and remember, your title might change, but your value never does.